The crystal throne room of the Zilithian Empire stretched across a space large enough to hold 3 battleships. Emperor Vextar the Eternal sat upon his seat of power, carved from a single piece of living crystal that pulsed with the energy of conquered worlds. The throne itself was older than most civilizations, and it had witnessed the rise of 17 star systems under imperial rule. General Morthak approached the throne with careful steps. His forearms carried data tablets filled with information about their latest discovery. The general's silver skin gleamed under the crystal lights as he knelt before his emperor. Behind him, dozens of court officials and military advisors waited in perfect silence. "My emperor," General Morthak began, "our scout ships have found something new at the edge of explored space, a young species called humans. They live on a blue world they call Earth." Emperor Vextar leaned forward slightly. His ancient eyes, which had seen 3 centuries of conquest, showed mild interest. "Tell me about these humans." The general activated his first data tablet. Holographic images appeared in the air above them. The court gasped at what they saw. Small pink-skinned creatures with only 2 arms and 2 legs. They looked so fragile compared to the mighty Zilithians. "They are primitive, my emperor. Very primitive. They still use chemical rockets to move between planets. Their weapons shoot metal bullets instead of energy beams. They have only managed to build a few small colonies in their home system. Their largest ship is smaller than our smallest patrol vessel." Other court officials began to whisper among themselves. Some laughed quietly. How could such weak creatures even survive in space? Emperor Vextar studied the images carefully. He watched videos of human cities, their crude factories, and their tiny space stations. These beings looked like children playing with toys compared to the Empire's might. "What is their military strength?" the Emperor asked. "Minimal, my emperor. They fight wars on their planet using vehicles that roll on wheels. They drop bombs filled with chemicals. Their most powerful weapons use nuclear fusion, but even those are weak. A single Imperial cruiser could destroy their entire fleet without taking damage." The court erupted in laughter. "Nuclear fusion!" The Empire had moved beyond such primitive energy sources hundreds of years ago. Their ships ran on controlled dark matter, and their weapons could tear holes in space itself. Admiral Kethlin stepped forward from the crowd. She was younger than most of the court, but her tactical skills had earned respect throughout the Empire. Her blue-scaled skin showed patterns that indicated concern. "My emperor, perhaps we should study them more carefully. Young species can sometimes develop in unexpected ways. The Grivari started with simple crystal technology, but they became troublesome when we underestimated them." Emperor Vextar waved one hand dismissively. "The Grivari were made of living silicon. They had natural advantages. These humans are soft meat creatures who need to breathe air. They will never threaten us." General Morthak nodded eagerly. "Should we begin conquest preparations, my emperor?" "Their world has useful resources. The blue oceans contain water that many of our subject species need. Their continents have metals we could mine." The emperor stood up from his throne. The living crystal pulsed brighter as his emotions rose. The entire court fell silent, waiting for his decision. This moment would shape the fate of both the Empire and humanity, though none of them knew it yet. "No," Emperor Vextar said firmly. "We will not conquer these humans." Shocked gasps filled the throne room. General Morthak's forearms trembled slightly. "My emperor, I do not understand. If we do not conquer them, should we make them our allies?" Emperor Vextar smiled coldly. It was the same smile he had worn when he decided to let the Catherian Republic burn, rather than accept their surrender quickly. "We will do something far more insulting. We will ignore them completely." He walked down the crystal steps from his throne, his royal robes flowing behind him. The court parted to make way for their emperor. "I hereby issue the Crimson Edict," he announced. "Terran space is forbidden to all Imperial forces. No ship will enter their territory. No trade will be offered. No communication will be established. They will remain alone in their tiny corner of space." Admiral Kethlin looked confused. "But my emperor, what purpose does this serve?" Emperor Vextar's eyes gleamed with cruel satisfaction. "Think about it, Admiral. These creatures see the galaxy around them. They know other species exist because they have detected our ships, yet we refuse to acknowledge them. We leave them alone not because we fear them, but because they are beneath our notice." The Emperor gestured to the holographic images of human cities. "They are like insects building hills in a garden. The gardener does not negotiate with insects. He does not conquer them. He simply ignores them until they become annoying enough to deserve attention. General Morthak began to understand. When they finally develop enough to leave their system, they will seek us out. They will come begging for trade, for technology, for protection from other species. Exactly, Emperor Vextar nodded. And when that day comes, they will discover how the galaxy truly works. They will learn that only the Empire can protect them from the dangers of space. They will accept whatever terms we offer, grateful that we noticed them at all. The court murmured approval. This was psychological warfare at its finest. The humans would spend decades or centuries knowing they were alone while others ignored them. The isolation would break their spirit long before they became strong enough to matter. Admiral Kethlin still looked uncertain. My Emperor, what if they develop differently than we expect? What if isolation makes them stronger instead of weaker? The Emperor laughed, and the court laughed with him. Admiral, look at them. They are meat creatures who live for less than 100 years. They fight wars over patches of dirt on their single planet. Isolation will not make them stronger. It will make them desperate. He returned to his throne and sat down. The living crystal dimmed slightly, responding to his calmer mood. The Crimson Edict is final. No Imperial ship will enter Terran space. No Imperial citizen will contact humans. They will remain forbidden, isolated, and alone. Let them play in their cosmic sandbox while we attend to important matters. General Morthak bowed deeply. It will be done, my Emperor. Should I post warning beacons around their territory? No, Emperor Vextar said. We will not even acknowledge their existence that much. Simply add their coordinates to the Forbidden Zones list. Any ship captain who enters will face court-martial. The court began to disperse, discussing the wisdom of their emperor's decision. Some admired the psychological cruelty of it. Others began planning how to exploit human desperation when the time came. Admiral Kethlin lingered as the throne room emptied. She studied the human images once more, memorizing their faces and their primitive ships. Something about their eyes bothered her. These creatures looked determined, not broken. They looked like beings who would fight rather than surrender. But the Emperor had spoken. The Crimson Edict would stand. Humanity would remain forbidden, isolated in their tiny system while the Empire continued its glorious expansion elsewhere. As she left the throne room, Admiral Kethlin made a private note in her personal files. She would monitor long-range sensors near human space. The Emperor might be right about human weakness, but military wisdom suggested keeping watch on all potential threats, no matter how small they seemed. The decision was made. Humanity would be ignored, dismissed, and left alone to struggle in cosmic isolation. The Empire would continue conquering worthy opponents while humans remained beneath notice. It was a decision born of pure arrogance. And it would doom them all. 50 years had passed since the Crimson Edict. Emperor Vextar still ruled from his crystal throne, his extended lifespan allowing him to see the fruits of his empire's continued expansion. The palace halls buzzed with reports of new conquests and successful trade negotiations. General Morthak, now bearing the scars of several campaigns, entered the throne room with his usual collection of data tablets. His silver skin had dulled with age, but his loyalty remained absolute. Behind him walked Admiral Kethlin, her blue scales now marked with the gold patterns of high rank. My Emperor, General Morthak announced, the Morden Collective has officially surrendered. Their aquatic cities are now under Imperial control. The silicon-based Gravari clusters attempted rebellion, but we crushed them completely. 17 star systems now bow to your will. Emperor Vextar nodded with satisfaction. And what of our trade routes? Flourishing beyond all expectations, my Emperor. The Catherian Republic provides us with rare metals in exchange for our protection. The Veltar Consortium handles shipping across 6 systems. Our treasury grows larger each year. The court celebrated these victories with obvious pleasure. Wine flowed from crystal containers while officials discussed how to spend their increasing wealth. The Empire had never been stronger or more prosperous. Admiral Kethlin stepped forward, her expression less celebratory than others. My Emperor, I must report some unusual sensor readings from the edge of our territory. The celebration quieted. Emperor Vextar's ancient eyes focused on his admiral. What kind of readings? Kethlin activated a holographic display. Strange energy patterns appeared in the air, unlike anything in Imperial databases. Our long-range sensors have detected these signatures near the border of forbidden space. The energy patterns do not match any known technology. General Morthak studied the display with interest. Perhaps another species has moved into that region? We should investigate and determine if they pose a threat. That is not possible, Admiral Kethelin said quietly. These readings are coming from inside the human territory. From the space we declared forbidden. The throne room fell completely silent. Emperor Vextar leaned forward on his crystal seat. Explain. Admiral Kethelin manipulated the holographic controls. The display zoomed in on the human star system. The energy signatures appear to be coming from massive construction projects in the outer regions of their system. Structures larger than anything we detected 50 years ago. Perhaps they are building space stations, suggested a court official. Even primitive species eventually expand their presence in space. These are not simple space stations, Kethelin replied. The energy output suggests industrial facilities the size of small moons. More concerning, we have detected gravitational anomalies that indicate they may have developed artificial gravity technology. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the court. Artificial gravity was advanced technology that most species took centuries to master. The Empire itself had only perfected it 200 years ago. Emperor Vextar's voice carried a dangerous edge. Are you suggesting these meat creatures have advanced beyond our initial assessments? Admiral Kethelin chose her words carefully. I am suggesting we may need to update our understanding of human capabilities. I have also intercepted fragments of their communications. She activated another display. Strange symbols appeared in the air, followed by rough translations. The court listened as Admiral Kethelin read from human transmissions. They speak of something called gravity wells. They mention FTL breakthrough protocols. They discuss defensive grid completion. Most concerning, they reference population centers and star systems that were uninhabited when we first observed them. General Morthak's forearms gestured dismissively. Primitive species often have grand plans they cannot achieve. They probably mean to build these things someday. With respect, General, these transmissions suggest current operations, not future plans. The humans appear to have expanded far beyond their original world. Emperor Vextar stood from his throne. The living crystal pulsed with angry red light. How is this possible? They were using chemical rockets 50 years ago. Unknown, my Emperor. The Crimson Edict prevents us from conducting proper reconnaissance. All information comes from long-range sensors and intercepted communications. A new voice spoke from the back of the court. Ambassador Telshan, recently returned from negotiations with the Catherian Republic, stepped forward nervously. My Emperor, I may have additional information. During my stay with the Catherians, they mentioned sending a diplomatic mission to contact the humans 3 months ago. Emperor Vexitar's eyes blazed. They did what? The Catherians are a peaceful species, my Emperor. They believe in making contact with all intelligent life. They sent 3 ships to attempt first contact with humanity. And? Admiral Kethelin prompted. Ambassador Telshan swallowed nervously. The ships never returned. The Catherians received no distress signals, found no debris. The ships simply vanished near the border of human space. The throne room erupted in angry discussions. Some officials suggested the humans had destroyed the Catherian ships. Others argued that primitive species could not eliminate advanced vessels without leaving evidence. Emperor Vextar raised one hand for silence. What do the Catherians believe happened? They assume the worst, my Emperor. They believe the humans are hostile pirates who destroyed their diplomatic mission. The Catherians have canceled all future contact attempts and warned other species to avoid human territory. Admiral Kethelin felt a cold certainty settling in her mind. My Emperor, I request permission to conduct a reconnaissance mission. 1 ship, minimal crew, just to observe current human capabilities. Absolutely not, Emperor Vextar snapped. The Crimson Edict stands. These humans remain forbidden, no matter what primitive tricks they have learned. But my Emperor, if they have advanced beyond our expectations, they are meat creatures with short lifespans. The Emperor shouted. 50 years is nothing. They cannot have developed technology that surpasses our own. The energy readings are probably industrial accidents. The missing Catherian ships encountered mechanical failures. General Morthak nodded enthusiastically. My Emperor speaks wisdom. These humans are isolated in their small territory. Even if they have learned a few new tricks, they remain trapped behind our forbidden zone. They cannot threaten the Empire. Admiral Kethelin wanted to argue further, but she recognized the futility. The Emperor's pride would not allow him to admit that ignored humans might have become dangerous. As you command, my Emperor. Should I increase monitoring of long-range sensors? Monitor if you wish, but do not waste significant resources on it. Focus on important matters. The Beltari hegemony shows signs of considering rebellion. The Kornath Mining Guild requests expanded territory. These are real issues that deserve our attention. The court returned to celebrating recent conquests. Officials discussed new trade agreements and military campaigns. The strange energy readings from human space became just another curiosity, filed away and forgotten by most. Admiral Kethlin remained after the celebration ended. She studied the holographic displays of human territory long into the night. The energy signatures were growing stronger each month. The gravitational anomalies suggested technology that even the Empire had not fully mastered. Most troubling were the intercepted communications. Humans spoke with casual confidence about concepts that should have been beyond their understanding. They mentioned defensive systems, fleet formations, and strategic planning as if they expected conflict. But with whom? As she finally left the throne room, Admiral Kethlin made a decision. She would continue monitoring human space closely, regardless of official policy. Military wisdom demanded understanding all potential threats, even those the Emperor chose to ignore. Behind her, the crystal throne pulsed with dim light, unaware that the Empire's greatest enemy was growing stronger in the silence they had imposed. The Voidborn ship appeared without warning in the heart of Imperial space. One moment the sector was empty. The next moment, a vessel unlike anything in Imperial records hung motionless near the capital world. The ship itself seemed to absorb light, creating a hole in space that hurt to look at directly. Imperial patrol ships surrounded the mysterious vessel immediately. Admiral Kethlin commanded the response fleet from her flagship, weapons powered and shields raised. But the alien ship made no aggressive moves. Instead, it transmitted a simple message in perfect Imperial language. We are the Voidborn Collective. We request immediate audience with Emperor Vextar the Eternal. We bring warning of great importance. The name Voidborn sent chills through every Imperial officer who heard it. These were the ancient ones, the synthetic beings who had existed for thousands of years. They rarely contacted organic species, and when they did, it usually meant something terrible was about to happen. Emperor Vextar received the message in his throne room. The court buzzed with nervous energy. Some officials suggested attacking the Voidborn ship immediately. Others argued for diplomatic caution. The Emperor himself remained silent for long minutes, considering his options. Grant them audience, he finally decided, but full security protocols. If these machines attempt deception, they will learn the price of threatening the Empire. The Voidborn envoy materialized in the throne room without using any visible transportation technology. One moment, the space before the crystal throne was empty. The next moment, a figure stood there. The being appeared humanoid but clearly artificial. Its body seemed to be made of the same light-absorbing material as their ship. Where a face should be, only shifting patterns of darkness moved. I am designated Alpha Null 7. The entity spoke without moving any visible mouth. I represent the Voidborn Collective. We have observed your species for 3 centuries with approval. Your expansion shows efficiency and strength. Emperor Vextar studied the strange being carefully. Why do you come to us now, Ancient One? The Voidborn have ignored organic politics for millennia. Because you have made an error that threatens galactic stability. You have dismissed a species that has become something unprecedented in our 12,000 years of observation. The court fell silent. General Morthak stepped forward, his forearms moving to weapon positions. Explain this threat. Alpha Null 7 turned its eyeless gaze toward the general. The species you call humans. The ones you have isolated behind your Crimson Edict. They have evolved beyond your understanding. Emperor Vextar's voice carried dangerous anger. Impossible. We observed them 50 years ago. They were primitive meat creatures using chemical rockets. 50 years, the Voidborn repeated. To organic beings with short lifespans, this seems like a brief time. But humans do not develop like other species. They do not follow normal patterns of technological growth. The entity gestured, and holographic images appeared in the air without any visible projector. The court gasped at what they saw. Massive structures surrounded the human homeworld, connected by streams of energy that bent space itself. Ships moved between planets in ways that defied known physics. We have monitored human development since your edict was issued. In 50 years, they have solved fundamental problems of physics that stymied civilizations far older than yours. They have developed not one but 3 different methods of faster-than-light travel. Admiral Kethlin leaned forward, her worst fears being confirmed. What kind of FTL technology? They began with spatial folding, moved to quantum tunneling, and recently achieved direct spacetime manipulation. Each method surpasses your hyperspace drives in both speed and efficiency. The court erupted in disbelief. 3 FTL methods? The Empire had spent centuries perfecting just one. Some officials shouted that the Voidborn was lying. Others demanded proof of these claims. Emperor Vextar raised his hand for silence. Even if this is true, they remain isolated. They cannot threaten us from their forbidden territory. Alpha Null 7's form seemed to pulse with something that might have been amusement. They are no longer isolated. Human colonies now exist in 47 star systems. Their industrial capacity equals that of your entire empire. More concerning, their military philosophy has evolved to view your expansion as a threat to galactic peace. Lies, General Morthak shouted. We would have detected such expansion. You would have detected it if you had been watching, the Voidborn replied calmly. But your Crimson Edict prevents observation. The humans have used your own policy against you. They expanded in directions you do not monitor because you declared their space forbidden. Emperor Vextar felt the first stirrings of doubt, but his pride would not allow him to show weakness. What evidence do you offer for these claims? The holographic display changed, showing detailed images of human colonies on worlds the Empire had never seen. Massive shipyards constructed vessels that dwarfed Imperial cruisers. Most terrifying were the defensive installations that surrounded human space like a wall of weaponized technology. We offer more than evidence, Alpha Null 7 said. We offer testimony. The Catherian diplomatic mission that vanished near human space? They were not destroyed. They were captured, studied, and released with their memories intact, but their ship's navigation systems disabled. The humans wanted to understand Imperial technology without revealing their own capabilities. Admiral Kethlin felt pieces clicking together in her mind. They have been watching us as carefully as we should have been watching them. More carefully, the Voidborn confirmed. Humans excel at preparation and adaptation. Your isolation allowed them to study the Empire through quantum-entangled sensor networks. They know your fleet positions, your trade routes, your military capabilities. You know nothing about theirs. The Emperor's crystal throne pulsed with angry red light. Are you suggesting these creatures pose a threat to the Empire? I am stating that they have become the most dangerous species in this sector of the galaxy. Not because they are evil, but because they prepare for every possible threat. Your Empire's expansion pattern suggests you will eventually conflict with human territory. They have spent 50 years preparing for that conflict. General Morthak's warrior instincts were screaming warnings, but his loyalty to the Emperor remained absolute. If they are so advanced, why do they remain hidden? Why not reveal themselves and demand recognition? Alpha Null 7 turned its attention to the general. Because they learned from observing you. They saw how you treat species that openly challenge the Empire. They chose a different strategy. They will remain hidden until the moment of conflict, then reveal capabilities far beyond your ability to counter. Emperor Vextar stood from his throne, his royal robes flowing around him. You speak of conflict as if it is inevitable. It is inevitable unless you change course. Human philosophy has evolved to view expanding empires as existential threats. They believe that empires eventually consume everything within reach. Your expansion will eventually threaten human space directly, and when that happens, they will act. The throne room remained silent for long moments. Emperor Vextar weighed the Voidborn's words against his own pride and certainty. The idea that ignored humans had become powerful enough to threaten the Empire seemed impossible. What do you suggest? Admiral Kethlin asked quietly. Contact them before conflict becomes inevitable. Acknowledge their sovereignty. Establish diplomatic relations. The humans are not inherently hostile, but they will defend themselves with overwhelming force if threatened. Emperor Vextar's expression hardened. The Empire does not negotiate from weakness. If these humans have become dangerous, then they must be dealt with before they become more dangerous. Alpha Null 7's form seemed to dim slightly. That would be unwise. Human defensive capabilities now exceed your offensive capabilities. A direct assault would result in Imperial defeat. Impossible, the Emperor roared. No species surpasses Imperial military might. Every species believes that until they encounter humans in combat. We have observed this pattern repeatedly. Species underestimate human adaptability until it is too late. The void-born entity began to fade from view. We have delivered our warning. What you do with this information determines the fate of your empire. Choose wisdom over pride, or watch your civilization join the many others that fell to their own arrogance. Alpha Null 7 vanished completely, leaving behind only the lingering scent of ozone and the echo of ominous prophecy. Emperor Vextar remained standing beside his throne, his mind racing with possibilities he did not want to consider. The Voidborn were known for their honesty, but accepting their warning meant admitting 50 years of catastrophic error. "Admiral Kethlin," he said finally, "begin preparing contingency plans for eventual contact with human space." The Admiral bowed deeply, but her mind was already working on more than contingencies. She was beginning to plan for war. The War Council met in the deepest chamber of the Imperial Palace, surrounded by walls of pure crystal that could withstand the explosion of stars. Emperor Vextar sat at the head of a massive table carved from a single piece of meteorite. Around him gathered the greatest military minds of the Empire, their faces grim with purpose. Admiral Kethlin spread holographic star charts across the table surface. Red markers showed Imperial fleet positions throughout their territory. "My Emperor, I have completed the fleet assessment you requested. We can assemble 800 ships for immediate deployment." General Morthak nodded approvingly. 800 ships is the largest force in Imperial history. No species has ever faced such overwhelming power. Emperor Vextar studied the projected fleet formations with satisfaction. The Voidborn warning had festered in his mind for weeks, growing from annoyance to obsession. How dare synthetic beings suggest that the Empire feared meat creatures? How dare they imply that humans could threaten Imperial supremacy? "What about the flagship?" he asked. Admiral Kethlin highlighted a massive vessel at the center of the formation. "The dreadnought Vextar's Will is fully operational. Planet-killer weaponry, dimensional shields, crew of 10,000. No force in the galaxy could stand against it." The Emperor's pride swelled as he looked at the representation of his greatest weapon. The ship was named after him for good reason. It embodied everything the Empire represented: overwhelming power, technological superiority, and absolute dominance. "The plan is simple," Emperor Vextar announced. "We will jump the entire fleet to the edge of human space. We will broadcast terms of surrender. When they see our power, they will submit immediately." Fleet Commander Veltok, a veteran of 12 conquest campaigns, shifted uncomfortably. "My Emperor, what if they refuse to surrender?" "Then we demonstrate Imperial resolve," the Emperor replied coldly. "We glass one of their colony worlds as an example. After witnessing that display of power, they will beg for mercy." Admiral Kethlin felt deep unease but could not openly contradict her Emperor. "Should we attempt to gather more intelligence before the assault?" "We still know very little about current human capabilities." "We know enough," General Morthak interrupted. The Voidborn spoke of defensive installations and advanced technology, but they provided no proof. "Ancient machines often exaggerate to seem important." Emperor Vextar nodded firmly. "Exactly. Even if humans have learned a few new tricks, they cannot match the combined might of 800 Imperial warships. This demonstration will remind the galaxy why the Empire remains supreme." The War Council spent hours refining attack formations and target priorities. Intelligence suggested human colonies existed in several systems beyond their homeworld. The fleet would emerge at coordinates that allowed them to threaten multiple targets simultaneously. "What of the Crimson Edict?" asked Fleet Commander Veltok. "For 50 years we have declared human space forbidden. The edict is hereby suspended," Emperor Vextar declared. "Imperial forces will enter human territory to deliver terms of surrender. Once they submit, we will establish proper control over their space." Admiral Kethlin made one final attempt at caution. "My Emperor, perhaps we should send a single scout ship first? Test their responses before committing the entire fleet." The Emperor's eyes blazed with offended pride. "Are you suggesting the Empire should skulk around like cowards? We will arrive in overwhelming force and accept immediate surrender. There will be no negotiation, no delay, no uncertainty." 3 days later, the Imperial fleet assembled at the staging point. 800 ships of various classes formed the most impressive military formation in galactic history. Battlecruisers bristled with energy weapons. Carriers held thousands of fighter craft. Support vessels carried enough firepower to conquer entire star systems. At the center of this armada floated the Vextar's Will, a mountain of crystalline armor and devastating weaponry. The Dreadnought's planet-killer beam could crack worlds in half. Its dimensional shields could deflect attacks that would vaporize lesser ships. Emperor Vextar stood on the flagship's command bridge, wearing his ceremonial armor that gleamed like captured starlight. Around him, hundreds of crew members prepared for what they expected to be the shortest conquest in Imperial history. All ships report ready for hyperspace jump. Admiral Kethlin announced. Excellent, the Emperor replied. Begin final preparations. We jump to human space in 1 hour. What the Empire did not know was that their communications had been monitored since the War Council meeting. Quantum-entangled spy networks, invisible to Imperial sensors, had transmitted every detail of the planned assault to human command centers. 50 light-years away, in a chamber that existed partially outside normal space-time, human military leaders made their final preparations. They had known this moment would come eventually. The Empire's expansion pattern made conflict inevitable. General Sarah Chen studied holographic displays showing the approaching Imperial fleet. 800 ships. They're bringing everything they have. Admiral Marcus Rodriguez nodded grimly. Arrogant but not unexpected. They still think we're the primitive species they observed 50 years ago. The trap is ready? General Chen asked. All defensive grids are in position. Gravitational anchors are charged. Dark matter weaponry is online. The zone of engagement has been prepared according to specifications. In Imperial space, the final countdown began. Emperor Vextar felt the thrill of approaching victory. Soon the galaxy would witness Imperial power crushing human defiance. The Voidborn warning would be revealed as synthetic cowardice. All ships ready for jump. Admiral Kethlin reported. Execute. Emperor Vextar commanded. 800 Imperial ships vanished into hyperspace, carrying the Empire's pride toward what they believed would be an easy victory. The largest military force in galactic history raced toward human space with absolute confidence in their superiority. They emerged from hyperspace at coordinates their intelligence indicated contained human colonies. Emperor Vextar expected to see primitive space stations and crude defensive platforms that would surrender immediately upon witnessing Imperial might. Instead, they found empty void. Sensors report no contacts, the navigation officer announced, confusion clear in his voice. Admiral Kethlin frantically checked star charts. We are at the correct coordinates. Intelligence indicated major human installations at this location. Emperor Vextar felt the first stirring of unease. Scan all nearby systems. Find these humans immediately. The fleet spread into search formation, sensors probing space for any sign of human presence. Minutes passed without contact. The Empire had brought overwhelming force to conquer an enemy that seemed to have vanished. Then the trap closed. Space itself began to change around the Imperial fleet. Gravitational fields appeared from nowhere, creating whirlpools of twisted space-time that grabbed ships and twisted them like toys. The laws of physics seemed to bend and break as human weapons revealed their true nature. Artificial gravity wells materialized directly inside Imperial vessels, tearing hulls apart from within. Localized space-time distortions caused crews to experience severe temporal dilation, aging decades in seconds while their ships remained frozen in normal time. Most terrifying of all were the dark matter weapons. Zones of space simply stopped functioning normally. Energy weapons fired into these areas and vanished. Ships caught in dark matter fields found their power systems failing as fundamental forces ceased to operate. The Imperial fleet, which had expected easy victory, found themselves fighting the fabric of reality itself. Admiral Kethlin watched in horror as battlecruisers that had conquered dozens of worlds were torn apart by weaponized space-time. Shields are useless, she reported to the Emperor. Our weapons cannot lock onto targets that exist partially outside normal dimensions. Emperor Vextar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 3 centuries of Imperial supremacy were crumbling in minutes. How is this possible? His answer came as human ships finally revealed themselves, appearing from folded space like ghosts becoming solid. They were smaller than Imperial vessels but moved with impossible grace, dancing between gravity wells and dark matter zones as if such weapons were toys. The battle lasted exactly 14 minutes. When it ended, only 3 Imperial ships remained functional, and only because the humans had deliberately allowed them to survive. The mighty Vextar's will, pride of the Imperial Navy, drifted as a powerless hulk in space. Admiral Kethlin's damaged cruiser received a transmission on emergency frequencies. The message was brief and delivered in perfect Imperial language. Your Emperor chose pride over wisdom. Your fleet demonstrated the danger of expanding empires. You may return to Imperial space with this message. Terran space will remain forbidden, but now we will enforce that prohibition. The Empire's expansion ends here. As the 3 surviving ships limped back toward Imperial territory, Emperor Vextar sat in his ruined flagship and finally understood the true meaning of the Voidborn warning. The Empire had not just been defeated. It had been dismissed, judged, and found wanting by the very species it had ignored. The 3 surviving Imperial ships limped back to the capital world like wounded animals returning to their den. Admiral Kethlin's cruiser carried the broken remains of the most powerful fleet in galactic history. In the medical bay, Emperor Vextar lay unconscious, his mind unable to process the magnitude of defeat. News of the disaster spread through Imperial space like wildfire. The impossible had happened. The Empire's greatest military force had been destroyed by the species they had dismissed as primitive meat creatures. Panic followed immediately behind disbelief. General Morthak assumed temporary command while the Emperor recovered. His forearms shook as he read report after report of chaos throughout Imperial territory. The Beltari hegemony had declared independence within hours of learning about the fleet's destruction. The Coroneth Mining Guild had seized control of 3 star systems. Even the loyal Catherian Republic was reconsidering their trade agreements. How many rebellions? Admiral Kethlin asked wearily. 17 confirmed, 12 more probable, General Morthak replied. Every subject species that resented Imperial rule is using this opportunity to break free. Admiral Kethlin studied the tactical displays with growing despair. Red markers showed rebel activity across half the Empire's territory. Imperial patrol ships were outnumbered and outgunned by species that had been peaceful just days before. What about our allies? Abandoning us as quickly as possible. The Veltar Consortium has suspended all shipping contracts. The Zephyrian Trade Federation is demanding immediate payment of outstanding debts. They smell weakness and want to distance themselves before we collapse completely. Emperor Vextar finally awakened 3 days after the defeat. His first words were a demand for status reports. When he learned the extent of the Empire's disintegration, his ancient face aged decades in moments. Impossible, he whispered. The Empire has stood for 3 centuries. We cannot fall because of one battle. Admiral Kethlin approached his medical bed carefully. My Emperor, it was not just a battle. It was a demonstration that our military supremacy was an illusion. Every species that feared us now knows we can be defeated. The Emperor struggled to sit up, his pride fighting against physical weakness. Then we rebuild. We gather our remaining forces and strike back at the humans with everything we have left. With what forces? General Morthak asked quietly. We lost 800 ships in 14 minutes. Our remaining fleet is scattered across 17 systems fighting rebellions. We have nothing left to threaten anyone. Emperor Vextar's eyes blazed with desperate fury. Then we negotiate. We offer the humans tribute, territory, anything they want in exchange for an alliance against our rebellious subjects. Admiral Kethlin exchanged glances with General Morthak. Neither wanted to deliver the news they had received that morning. My Emperor, Kethlin said gently, the humans have already responded to our situation. She activated a holographic display that showed the borders of Imperial space. New markers appeared, showing human vessels positioned at every major exit point from Imperial territory. They are not allowing any Imperial ship to leave our current boundaries. They call it enforcement of the Crimson Edict. They say we are now forbidden to expand beyond our existing territory. Emperor Vextar stared at the display in growing horror. They have contained us? More than contained, General Morthak added. They sent a message to all rebellious species offering protection from Imperial retaliation. Every world that declares independence from us receives a guarantee of human support. The Emperor's crystal throne, damaged in the return journey, pulsed weakly in the corner of the medical bay. Its light seemed dimmer, reflecting the dying strength of the Empire itself. What do they want from us? Emperor Vextar asked. Admiral Kethlin activated the communication system. They sent a direct message. It is addressed to you personally. The holographic display changed to show a human figure. It was a woman with graying hair and calm eyes that somehow conveyed both strength and sadness. When she spoke, her words carried the weight of absolute authority. Emperor Vextar the Eternal, I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. Your recent attack on human space was unprovoked aggression against a peaceful species. However, we do not seek revenge or conquest. The human admiral paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. 50 years ago, you declared Terran space forbidden because you considered us beneath notice. You meant it as an insult, but you gave us the greatest gift possible, time to prepare for the inevitable conflict with your expanding empire. Emperor Vextar felt each word like a physical blow to his pride. We studied your empire carefully during our isolation. We learned how you conquered other species through overwhelming force and economic pressure. We decided that such expansion was a threat to galactic peace and prepared accordingly. The human admiral's expression hardened slightly. Your empire can keep the territory it currently controls, but expansion is over, forever. Any attempt to leave your current boundaries will be met with immediate response. Any aggression against species under our protection will result in consequences you cannot imagine. The message paused again. When Admiral Chen spoke next, her voice carried a note of genuine regret. This outcome was preventable. If you had chosen diplomacy over dismissal, cooperation over arrogance, none of this would have been necessary. Your pride created the very enemy you feared most. The transmission ended, leaving the medical bay in complete silence. Emperor Vextar closed his eyes, finally understanding the terrible irony of his situation. The Crimson Edict had been meant to demonstrate imperial superiority through dismissive isolation. Instead, it had given humanity everything they needed to become the Empire's destroyer. How long before the Empire collapses completely? He asked quietly. General Morthak consulted his data tablets. Economic projections suggest 6 months to 2 years, depending on how many more systems rebel. The Empire was built on continuous expansion. Without new territories to exploit, we cannot maintain our current size, and the humans will not allow us to expand. No, my Emperor, they have made that very clear. Over the following months, Emperor Vextar watched his empire fragment piece by piece. Species that had been subjects for centuries declared independence and received human protection. Trade routes collapsed as former allies sought more reliable partners. The military struggled to maintain order in the remaining loyal systems. The final irony came when the Voidborn Collective sent another message. Alpha Null 7 appeared in the throne room one last time, its dark form seeming to absorb what little light remained in the Crystal Palace. We warned you that pride would destroy your empire. The synthetic being said without preamble. You chose to ignore that warning. Emperor Vextar, now truly showing his age, sat slumped on his damaged throne. Have you come to mock our defeat? We come to observe the end of another empire that fell to its own arrogance. The humans offer a different model. They expand through alliance and cooperation rather than conquest. They protect rather than exploit. The Voidborn entity gestured toward the throne room's crystal walls, which now showed cracks that no amount of repair could fix. Your empire lasted 3 centuries. That is respectable by organic standards. But it ended the moment you chose to dismiss rather than acknowledge potential equals. As Alpha Null 7 faded from view, Emperor Vextar was left alone with the ruins of his civilization. The mighty empire that had conquered 17 star systems and dominated dozens of species was dying. Not from external attack, but from internal collapse caused by its own prideful isolation. Years later, historians would mark the exact moment when the Zilithian Empire fell. It was not when their fleet was destroyed or when rebellions began. It was the day Emperor Vextar signed the Crimson Edict, declaring human space forbidden. In trying to cage humanity through indifference, the Empire had freed them to become something far beyond imperial comprehension. The forbidden had become the inevitable, and the Empire lost everything to their own pride. The galaxy moved on. Human colonies spread through space, not through conquest but through invitation from species seeking protection from aggressive empires. The model of expansion through cooperation proved far more successful than expansion through domination. Emperor Vextar spent his final years ruling over a handful of systems, watching human ships patrol the borders of his shrunken domain. He never again spoke of forbidden space or primitive species. The age of the Zilithian Empire was over. The age of humanity had begun. Thank you for watching and comment for next part.